Hey everyone! Today we're going to talk about something that happens around us every single day, often completely unnoticed: the exchange of things. You buy your morning coffee, you offer your skills in the job market, you exchange your time for a salary. But have you ever wondered how this process works at a fundamental level, and why it's not just a simple "I give, you take"?
Produced not for its creator's immediate consumption, but specifically for exchange in the market. Simply put, a product becomes a commodity when its main purpose is to be alienated and exchanged for something else.
Every commodity has use value. This is its usefulness, its ability to satisfy a certain human need or want. A cup of coffee helps you wake up. A smartphone connects you to the world. Without usefulness, there can be no commodity, because no one will exchange a useless thing. Moreover, this usefulness must be social. That is, useful not only to me, but to others generally. But there's also exchange value. This is the proportion in which one commodity is exchanged for another. For example, 10 kilograms of potatoes might be equated to one pair of shoes. And here the question arises: what exactly makes these seemingly completely different things equal in the process of exchange? Their usefulness is incomparable. It's hard to compare the usefulness of potatoes for sustenance with shoes for protecting your feet. What makes different goods commensurable is not their utility, but something they have in common: human labor. More precisely, socially necessary labor time, the average time it takes to produce a given commodity under current conditions. The more such labor is invested, the higher its value. This is what allows us to compare, for example, apples with oranges or potatoes with shoes. For the owner of a commodity, its use value lies only in its being a bearer of exchange value, that is, a means of exchange. I produce a commodity not for myself, but to exchange it for something I need. The buyer, on the other hand, acquires the commodity precisely for its usefulness. This internal split, one purpose for the producer, another for the buyer, is the driving force of the entire exchange process. A commodity thus simultaneously embodies two different and often contradictory social functions.
Exchange hasn't always existed in its modern form. Initially, people produced primarily for their own consumption or for the needs of their community. A thing became a commodity when it went beyond the boundaries of this naturally formed community, at its interface with foreign communities or their members. It was there, where natural economy ended, that commodity exchange began.
But commodities cannot exchange themselves. For that, commodity owners are needed. To exchange his potatoes for someone's shoes, both participants in the exchange must voluntarily agree that these things are their private property, and they willingly carry out the exchange. This legal relationship, essentially a contract, reflects the economic relationship.
Every commodity owner seeks to dispose of their commodity only in exchange for other commodities whose use value satisfies their own needs. From this perspective, exchange is a purely individual process. However, on the other hand, they seek to realize their commodity as value. That is, to exchange it for another commodity of the same value, regardless of whether their own commodity has use value for the owners of other commodities. In this aspect, exchange becomes a universal social process. But the same process cannot be simultaneously only individual and only universally social for all commodity owners. How is this difficulty resolved? Society, as if obeying an instinct, finds a way out. To make all commodities commensurable as values, a universal equivalent is needed, one commodity to which all other commodities will be equated. As this process repeats and exchange expands and deepens, one specific commodity crystallizes into this role. It becomes money. This is not someone's invention or decree, but a necessary product of the exchange process itself, which facilitates trade.
To understand this better, let's imagine a peasant with surplus grain and a shoemaker with many shoes. In a direct grain for shoes exchange, it's simple. But when a blacksmith appears who wants both grain and shoes, and the peasant, besides shoes, also needs a plow from the blacksmith, the system becomes incredibly complex. A mediator, a universal measure, is desperately needed. And it is at this point that, for example, cattle or shells, and then precious metals like gold, begin to act as such a universal equivalent, recognized by everyone.
Now let's fast forward to the present. You buy a new smartphone for $1,000. You probably don't think about how many hours of labor went into mining its materials, assembling it, designing it, logistics, and marketing. You just see the number $1,000. Money here is not just a convenient means of payment. It is the congealed reflection of all those labor relations that stand behind the smartphone, but which have become invisible to us. And this is where we get to the mystery of commodity fetishism. We begin to perceive the value of things as if it were inherent in them, like a physical property. We see the price, but we stop seeing the relationships between the people who produced that commodity, their labor, their social connections behind it. Markets mediate a complex network of interdependencies where we don't even know who produced what we buy or where it was produced. Money, as the universal equivalent, reinforces this delusion, transforming social relations between producers into seemingly objective relations between things. The mystery of money fetishism, therefore, is merely the visible, dazzling mystery of commodity fetishism. So, exchange is more than just buying and selling. It is a complex process that began with the fact that every commodity has two sides. To resolve the contradictions that arise in exchange, humans invented money as a universal way to measure value. But over time, this process became so complex that the real relationship between people began to look like the relationship between the commodities themselves. This phenomenon is called commodity fetishism.
Now, the next time you buy something, try asking yourself what really stands behind this price. What human relationships and what labor are hidden behind that number? And how does this knowledge change your perspective on a world where almost everything is bought and sold? If you found this interesting, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. See you next time in the world of economics and philosophy.